him, he chased survival. Yet, hidden in this boy's tears was a destiny too great for anyone to see. This is not a tale of quick success. It is a story where betrayal cuts deeper than knives, where friends turn to enemies, where love becomes poison, and where prison walls threaten to bury a man alive. Still, from the ashes of pain, Chinedu rose. What turned an ordinary Okada rider into a millionaire celebrated across the world? The answer lies in the twists of his unforgettable journey. The story of Chinedu Okafor begins not with laughter, but with loss. As a boy, he stood at the graveside of his parents, watching the earth swallow his only protection. From that moment, life demanded more from him than it should from any child. He hawked Okada under the scorching sun, carried loads too heavy for his shoulders, and learned early that tears never put food on the table. The people around him called him cursed, a boy destined to remain poor. But Africa knows how to shape heroes out of hardship. From the dust of the market square to the chaos of prison cells, Chinedu's story carried the voice of destiny. Every setback was a stepping stone, every betrayal was a lesson, and every scar was proof that greatness often hides in suffering. This is not just a Nigerian story, it is an African folktale of pain, survival, and triumph. From the very beginning, life placed a heavy load on the shoulders of Chinedu Okafor. He was barely 10 years old when tragedy struck like a storm at midnight. First, his father, Papa Okafor, a strong farmer with arms hardened by years of tilling the soil, fell ill and died suddenly. Before the family could recover from that wound, his mother, Mama Grace, followed to the grave. The boy who once hid behind his mother's wrapper now stood alone, staring at the red earth that swallowed both his parents. In the silence of the village that day, one question lingered. How can a child carry so much? With no parents to guide him, Chinedu became a wanderer of survival. He carried a tray of Okada on his small head, walking from street to street in the scorching sun, calling out, "Hot Okada, sweet Okada." Sometimes the bean cake sold, sometimes it didn't. On days when nobody bought, he went home empty, and hunger gnawed at his belly like a wild beast. Often he would stand by neighbors' doors, begging for a little food. Many turned him away with cold eyes, some even mocked him, saying, "Go and join your parents in the grave if you are tired of suffering." Those words cut deeper than hunger itself. At night, while other children played under the moonlight, Chinedu sat with an empty plate before him. His body was thin, his ribs visible through his worn shirt, yet his eyes carried a strange fire. He cried quietly into his palms, praying for someone, anyone, to notice his pain. But the village had grown deaf to his tears. He had learned early that tears could not buy bread. Still, he asked himself, why me? Why should a child suffer so much? Dear listener, what would you do if the world placed such a burden on your small shoulders? Would you break, or would you fight? As the years passed, hardship carved its mark on Chinedu's body. His once soft palms grew hard from carrying loads at the market. His feet, bare and cracked, told the story of long journeys in search of work. He begged to wash plates in food stalls, to carry baskets for strangers, and to scrub floors for pennies. Sometimes, after hours of labor, he was driven away without pay. On such nights, he wept bitterly, pressing his face into the dust of the ground. Isn't it true that sometimes life gives you more than you can carry, only to see if you will collapse? The life of Chinedu Okafor entered a new season when he laid down the tray of Okada and mounted an old, battered Okada. To him, it was a chance to escape hunger and finally earn steady money. The streets of Port Harcourt became his new workplace. Noisy markets, crowded bus stops, angry drivers, and policemen demanding bribes at every corner. From sunrise to sunset, Chinedu's hands gripped the rusty handlebars while his back bent under the weight of survival. Every naira he earned was quickly swallowed by rent, food, and debts. Yet as he rode, he carried in his heart the silent hope that maybe, just maybe, life would finally show him mercy. But mercy did not come. One rainy evening, as thunder rolled and the streets turned slippery, disaster struck. A speeding car ran into Chinedu's Okada, flinging him across the road like a rag doll. His body hit the ground with a sickening thud. Bones cracked, blood spilled, and passers-by gathered, whispering, "This poor boy again." Instead of helping, many walked away, shaking their heads. That night, Chinedu lay in a hospital bed, his body broken, his future uncertain. The bills piled higher than the mountains, and no friend or relative came forward. Only his little sister Nkechi sat by his bedside, her small hands clutching his, crying, "Brother, please don't die, please." Day after day, nurses threatened to throw him out for unpaid bills. Chinedu wept silently. He begged from his hospital bed, "Please help me, I don't want to die here." But no one listened. Not even his so-called friends who once promised they would never leave him. Even his girlfriend Ifeoma, who once swore eternal love, stopped visiting. The weight of betrayal pressed on him heavier than his broken bones. Still, Nkechi never left. Each day, she returned with swollen eyes, kneeling by his bed, whispering prayers that heaven seemed too silent to answer. Then, when all hope seemed lost, destiny walked into the ward. A good Samaritan, an elderly man whose son Chinedu had once helped at the market, appeared. Touched by the sight of the young boy's suffering and his sister's tears, the man cleared the hospital bills without asking for anything in return. For the first time in weeks, Chinedu smiled through his pain, whispering, "God has not forgotten me." Treated and discharged, he limped out of the hospital, still weak but alive. But poverty does not give long holidays. His body had not fully healed, yet hunger forced him back into the saddle of another Okada. This time, the Okada was not his. It belonged to a man who gave it to him on hire purchase, expecting daily returns. Each morning, even with pain shooting through his legs and back, Chinedu dragged himself onto the motorbike, because missing a day's payment meant losing his only chance at survival. Sometimes he returned late, bruised and exhausted, handing over almost all his earnings. What remained was barely enough to buy food for himself and his sister. It was a cruel cycle: work, pain, pay, hunger, repeat, and yet he endured. Isn't it strange how life forces the poor to keep giving even when they have nothing left? The streets gave him little comfort. Police officers stopped him, demanding bribes. Passengers insulted him if he asked for fair payment. Some days he went home empty, staring at Nkechi with shame in his eyes. On those nights, he cried in silence, burying his face in his pillow so his sister would not hear. But children notice everything. One evening, Nkechi placed her tiny hands on his shoulder and said, "Brother, one day, all this will end. One day, you will not suffer anymore." Those words, though spoken by a child, became his strength. But just when it seemed things might get better, another betrayal crept in. Friends who had once sworn to support him now mocked him, laughing at his patched clothes and worn slippers. Some said to his face, "Chinedu, you will ride Okada until your bones rot." Their words stung like knives. And Ifeoma, the girl who once vowed to love him forever, walked away from his side, choosing a richer man. Alone, rejected, and bruised from both life and love, Chinedu still clung to one truth: he was not born to die in poverty. The road of suffering took a darker turn for Chinedu Okafor one hot afternoon when police sirens roared and officers dragged him from his Okada. They accused him of a theft he had never committed. Before he could explain, their boots and batons rained down on him. Blow after blow fell until blood ran from his nose and his back felt like fire. Passers-by watched from a distance, whispering, but no one dared to help. By the time the police dumped him at the station, his body was so battered that when Nkechi, his little sister, came and saw him, she almost fainted on the spot. "Brother, brother," she cried, but the iron doors shut behind him, swallowing her screams. Inside the cell, the smell of sweat and urine choked him. His body begged for treatment, but none came. He was thrown into the darkness without trial, without a chance to defend himself, his innocence buried under the weight of a corrupt system. Many nights, Chinedu sat on the cold floor, his tears mixing with the dust as he whispered, "God, please, don't forget me." Yet heaven seemed silent. His cries went unanswered, and his chains grew heavier with each passing day. Outside those walls, life was no kinder to his sister. Nkechi, who once clung to him for strength, now found herself alone. Their little hut, already weak and cracked, was demolished by the government in a sweeping eviction.